Welcome to Community Cuts, live from Brooklyn, New York. We have a great show with Kimberly and our guests. Please tune in, get your popcorn and whatever else that you have. It's live. Brooklyn is in the house. We're about 5 minutes away from Barclays Center, where the Brooklyn Nets play. Again, welcome to Community Cuts. Kimberly, how are you doing?
I'm good. Welcome. I feel like we probably need to leave a little more time for people to come into the room, but I will start by saying hi. It's been a while since I was on Community Cuts. I don't know, 8 months or so, something like that. But I am a resident of Brooklyn, New York. I have been a resident and homeowner here since around, I guess I came to Brooklyn at about 85. I owned a co-op first for a number of years, rented for 1 year, and then bought my townhouse, single family townhouse in 24 and a half years ago. So I'm one of those longtime people who've been here and seen the gentrification that's been going on in New York. And I'm definitely struggling right now with all these changes that have come into effect over the years. I am a person who has short-term rented, offered my space in my home as a short-term rental over the years. I've loved the opportunity to do so and meet so many amazing people from around the world. And local law 1108 stopped that. It stopped that because there are a lot of limitations in place for that. And so that is why we're having this conversation today, because a group of 1 and 2 family homeowners have worked diligently over the years to put together a bill and propose a bill to the council members to roll back some of the limitations that have been placed on 1 and 2 family homeowners. It's not for anything beyond that. It's just focused on 1 and 2 family homeowners. So we have some people here today who are going to talk about exactly what is encompassing in that legislation that's being proposed so that homeowners around New York, and actually people who aspire to be homeowners in the future, because it can happen. So something that's a law that's in place now could be could affect you, even if you're not a homeowner now, but you may be a homeowner later. So these laws, if it's very limited, you may not be able to have autonomy over your home. That's kind of the way things are in place right now. So I would like everyone to introduce themselves. What's your name? What part of Brooklyn do you live in? And you live in Brooklyn, because this is New York, right? But I know everyone who's here is in Brooklyn. And how long have you been in New York? How about we start there? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sounds amazing. Good evening. Thank you for having us. It's great to be here. My name is Marjanae Moore Roberts. I am in Brooklyn. I live in Bed-Stuy. I've been in New York for over 25 years, Brooklyn for the last 15, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I consider myself very much a New Yorker, very much a Brooklynite. I live in District 36, and I use, what we call responsible home sharing. Long before the platforms came onto the scene, people, especially Black and brown people across the city have relied on home sharing to buy a home, afford a home, and keep it. It takes a small miracle to buy a home in the city. Lord knows. And so it's one thing to get in; it's a whole other thing to keep it.
Mhm.
So we've been advocating for these changes for a long time. So I'm really grateful to you for having the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Erica Hutchinson. I'm a native New Yorker, originally from Harlem, but I've been in Brooklyn since '98. I've owned my home, and it was a complete gut renovation. Squatters were living there, so home sharing, like just the process of renovating and maintaining a brownstone of that age takes so much effort, and home sharing has definitely afforded me some of that additional income that's really been crucial, because you just never know when the furnace is going to go or the boiler or something. There's always something needing work. And as Marjane say, I think as responsible homeowners, home sharers, we're actually providing a service both to tourists who come and can't or don't want to spend $500 a night to stay in Times Square. We're bringing revenue to the local economy, the local restaurants, services, people who want a more authentic Brooklyn neighborhood experience. I host often, and in the past, a lot of families who grandparents are in the neighborhood visiting a new baby, and they want to be close to where their children are living or their grandchild is. I've been active with Roar for like the last 2.5 years or so, since the implementation of Local Law 18. And I'm just hoping that the carve-out can happen for 1 and 2 family owners, because we're not hotels. We're not like wealthy people who are trying to get over in the system or manage, I have a 2-family house, and I have 1 extra unit that I can rent out. And I'm hoping to be able to continue to do that, because it's been a lifeline when I've needed to get work done, and I didn't necessarily have the income, the chunk of income needed to do renovation work.
Yeah, I know fully.
Yeah.
And I'll, Lord, share my story, but I want another person who's joining us to speak. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
My name is Tony Lindsay. I am a Brooklyn resident. I live in East New York, Brooklyn, District 42. I'm the president of New York Homeowners Alliance. We advocate for small homeowners, not only their access to generational wealth, but their ability to create generational wealth and preserve that access here in New York City, particularly for small homeowners. Our organization is comprised of mostly Black and brown and elderly New Yorkers, many of them who have been in this city for generations. And we're heading towards a permanent rental economy where we are being erased as homeowners. And we know that one of the primary engines to creating generational wealth that you can pass down to your children is owning a home. So we cannot allow that to be erased here in New York City. And so that's pretty much what we advocate for. And Local Law 18, I'm looking forward to discussing this, because it has done the exact opposite of what it was touted of its purported purpose. And so, I'm just glad for the opportunity to be able to put the truth out there as it pertains to a lot of the false narratives that have been shared to kind of fearmonger people against Intro 948A, which is the bill that I actually authored that is up for a vote coming very soon.
Okay, so before we get into exactly what is touted in both bills, I want to, what sorts of things, what is the narrative that has been said that you guys would like to debunk? Okay, what? Because I've heard a lot of things. Who'd like to start?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll offer, we can probably all contribute.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing to start with is that when in 2018, when Local Law 18 was first proposed, it was really about getting rid of bad actors.
Right.
People who were taking up a bunch of, individual rental units off the market and using them exclusively for the purposes of short-term rental. That created some issues. We're behind some level of regulation because we don't want that type of exploitation in our communities either. At that time, public advocate Jumani Williams acknowledged this recently as well, 1 and 2 family homeowners were supposed to be exempted from the law at that time. Through a series of events, administration changes, et cetera, once the law was finally implemented, we found ourselves being included in that law. There's so many different things that happen that were not, the city was not transparent about,
Right.
that contributed to that. As a 1 and 2 family homeowner, we're considered private homeowners.
Right.
So the whole definition of an illegal hotel used to be 3 or more units. And so there was a bunch of machinations behind the changes over the years that contributed to that. So one of the narratives is simply that we are part of the bad actors and that we are taking rental inventory off of the market. And the reality is we all live in our homes.
Right.
Like what we're advocating for in the bill 948A is for permanent occupants of 1 and 2 family dwellings. These are the homes we live in. Obviously, you can't take something off the market that's not on the market. We're not going to move out.
Right.
We all need somewhere to live as well. So that's one of the prevailing narratives. I think the other one that's, that's sort of taken up all the oxygen in the room that often comes up is that this is about, Airbnb versus the city of New York or homeowners versus tenants. That is not the right narrative. We are not anti-tenant. I think all of us were tenants at some point. I certainly rented for years and years. And that narrative in and of itself is a distraction because in our experience, we want people to matriculate into home ownership over time. We believe it's the best way. And it's not what we believe. The research shows that's how people create housing security, financial stability, generational wealth. That's the bottom line. Home ownership is one of the most reliable ways to get there. And so we're really trying to debunk that narrative and put the attention where it is. This is about 1 and 2 family homeowners, most of us middle and lower income people trying to hold on to our homes. And without the income that we get from responsible home sharing over the years, a lot of our members are losing their homes.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who is really seriously looking at not being able to be here
That's
much
right.
longer because of that. Because and I was only making between $10,000 and $20,000 a year through home sharing.
If that,
Because, if that exactly and that's if I put 2 of my bedrooms up as opposed to 1, which is what I had done historically.
Right.
But then with the economy getting the way it is, and losing, I'm an event producer, and what production has been like in TV and film, and music and everything. And so it was really a lifeline. And I've had to go into all my savings and everything else. And
Absolutely.
and I know, and you've heard of the many Black women across the country who've lost their
300,000.
jobs. I'm just like, come on. Hello,
And
so
I'll finish the point and then make sure my co-panelists have a chance to say.
of course.
But I think that's just the point. I think a lot of people believe that if you own a home that you're rich, and it's simply not the case. It literally took a small miracle and a lot of luck to buy these homes. And God bless you if you never have a life event that causes your finances to be impacted. People get divorced, spouses die, kids leave the nest, you retire, you lose a job. All of those things impact your ability to be financially stable. And something like local law, 18 is exacerbating that. The final point I want to make sure we get in here, because I think it's important, is, one of the narratives that's starting to emerge here is if you look throughout the history of government regulations and home ownership for Black and Brown families, what we know is government regulations have been a primary cause of whether or not Black and Brown families are able to buy and keep a home. You think about Seneca Village being turned over into Central Park. You think redlining, predatory lending, now displacement by underregulated corporate landlords and investment banks. All of those are issues started with the government. And local law 18 is on track to become one of those things that we talk about in 10 or 20 years. 948A is a bill that could easily solve that. It's a very small carve out. And I think the city council, we're so grateful that they're that there's a bill that's being considered. We had a hearing to talk about the bill. It's in their hands. This is a city council, I think, that wants the legacy of making sure that that trend doesn't continue. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to help them see the impact on real constituents. And we hope that that bill passes so that we can all hold on to our homes.
Yeah, I think at the hearing, what I saw that I think needs to be disputed a little bit is that, we're also not against the hotel workers.
Not at all.
Yeah, we're very much probably have more in common with them than the hotel owners. So we want to support them as well, their quality of life as well as ours. It's really an issue of the bigger hotel lobby industry that's being greedy and just doesn't want any competition at all. And we're not even really competing. Like, we're offering such a completely different service. We, as homeowners and hosts, we're present in the home. We just offer a level of service that isn't really comparable to anything that is available at like a major hotel chain. So it's like it's such an uneven fight and it's such an unfair fight. And it feels like what I observed at the hearing, seeing so many of the hotel workers just downing anything that we were trying to say. It's like, we're really not against you guys. Like, there's enough hospitality opportunities around New York City. Like, people, there's no shortage of people wanting to come here. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, game, like a sum zero. Like, they win and they get to have everything. We're really just looking for a carve out for 1 and 2 family owner occupied home sharers, and that's it. We're not bad actors. We're really trying to stay in our homes. And honestly, I have to say, I don't feel great about the city considering my second apartment in my 2-family home as part of the city's housing stock, because it's not. It was never intended for that. For me, one of the things historically, it's never been that way. I like you said, prior to any platform or anything, there's always been, like, it was always going to be something that maybe I had a long-term tenant, or maybe when I wasn't able to, because so many of, as a native New Yorker, I have a lot of family here, but a lot of my generation has been forced out. Like, they've moved down south, they've moved to other places.
My generation.
All of mine. I'm the last one.
Exactly.
I'm the last one.
There's only 2. There's only 2 here now.
But I'm grateful because I have the space. I'm able to host my family when they come. And so I will never have a long-term tenant.
Exactly.
Like, it's not, you're not losing anything. It's not, you're not gaining, the city's not gaining my apartment ever. I will, do what I have to do to kind of maintain that autonomy to be able to host family and friends when they come to New York. It's a wonderful opportunity that I think is really being overlooked. And so, I want to just add to that.
That's the type of guest I've had for years. It's been, grandparents coming to see their new grandchild. I've had a lot of repeat guests like that. Young college students who are just trying to come explore the city. They don't have $400, $500, even $300 a night to spend in New York.
That's right.
Heck, I don't spend that when I'm traveling. I'm just like, I need a room. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I've always wanted to provide accommodations to people who don't have a lot of money, because we need to see the world too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry.
No, you're right though, because it really eliminates that option.
Yeah.
There's a whole market of like lower income kind of people who want to explore the city, but maybe need a kitchen because they can't eat out every day.
Exactly.
So I mean, you can't get that in a hotel.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a huge loss of revenue. I mean, I don't know the numbers. I don't know if you know.
There's several studies out there, but just this morning, and maybe Tony will talk about this a bit, I don't know, but the bill sponsors Mercedes Narcisse out of Canarsie, and she was on New York One today, and she said, the host, not Mercedes, but the host said somebody in their company tried to get a room and it was $900 a night. So even the corporations are saying we can't afford that. But one study we saw said since the implementation of Local Law 18, the hotels have made between 2.1 and 2.9 billion with a B, dollars. And they're winning.
Yeah.
They're winning.
We're
not.
Their profits have increased by double digits. There are a lot of false narratives that are surrounding this entire conversation. And I just think a few things need to be made clear. Intro 948A is not an Airbnb bill. And I think that's been the thing that has been used to turn people off to it by, I guess, overshadowing what this bill is under the guise of the corporation. And Intro 948A was simply written by homeowners for homeowners to protect our rights. Under state law, we are not included in this short-term rental enforcement. We are exempt from that as private dwellings. Private dwellings, those are your private residences. So therefore, it requires it's a different standard under the state law, the state multiple dwelling law. So when we hear this narrative that our homes are somehow a default part of the city's housing stock, that is a false narrative. If you own a 1 and 2 or 2 family home, you are a private resident under state law, which supersedes the local law. Therefore, that means the city cannot just designate you as part of their housing stock, whereas they are trying to force you to become a landlord in the city in your private home. So I think that's one thing that is important that needs to be said. Another thing is short-term rentals existed before hotels, before Airbnb, before all of that. So people need to understand, even under local law 18, actually we can take a step back. We know that the hotel trades union has been they've been putting out this false narrative in their war with Airbnb. But the people who have been ignored in this are us. And it's really upsetting when you see those voices just supersede yours while you're the one when we're bearing the brunt of all of the consequences. Local Law 18 was touted as a bill that was supposed to protect Black and brown people from gentrification. It has accelerated gentrification because while some of those studies, some of them that were used to justify Local Law 18 that were akin to the brown paper bag test, it used the metric that basically said, well, white people are benefiting more from short-term rentals, so we need to just scrap it. So what does that do for the Black homeowners who own their homes and are also benefiting from it? So you're justifying marginalizing the marginalized because, not too many of them are doing short-term rentals. That doesn't make sense. Another false narrative, we already know is that short-term rentals in people's private homes somehow has an impact on the long-term rental stock in the city and the price of rent. That's absolutely incontrovertibly false.
Right. This right here is what they're trying to say.
They're trying to say that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're trying to say that the reason why Local Law 18 was passed in order to protect tenants and the rising cost of rent. But there have been multiple studies that have been published that show that there was a less than 1% impact on rent, even when you had all of the bad actors, meaning the Airbnb arbitrage folks who were doing like leasing dozens of apartments across the city, the owners of those big multiple dwelling apartment buildings that were turning them into illegal hotels. So Local Law 18, it did its job when it came to those bad actors. I mean, we've seen the previous mayor, current mayor, Jumaane Williams and others get on TV and tout those same people as the problem. And it wasn't just Jumaane, but it was also Ben Callos, the person who introduced the bill, who made it very clear, hey, this is not something that's going to apply to 1 and 2 families.
Yeah,
You know who else said that? Mike McGee, one of the people from the Coalition Against Illegal Hotels, who had a hand in drafting the law, as well as Tom Kaler? I forgot the other, Murray Cox. I think his name is Murray Cox. So I'm saying all of this to say that there have been so many false narratives that have been put out there to pit tenants against people who own and reside in their homes. And I think that that's particularly nefarious and insulting because it's hurting a lot of people who are right now in foreclosure. Some have already sold their homes and many are right on the brink right now. And we need to find relief for them.
Yeah, and some of the data that backs that up, I think year over year, foreclosure rates are up 37% in Brooklyn alone, 27% in Queens. If you look at the vacancy rate, it's gone down by 0.5%.
Yes.
And rents have gone up by about 8.1% since the implementation of local law 18. So,
The opposite.
there's the data for the fact that including 1 and 2 family homeowners in this law did not have the desired impact. Again, we absolutely do not want bad actors. The gross exploitation is not something we want, but we do very much need and believe that the ability to use our homes to take care of ourselves. That's the other piece here. There's a level of self-sufficiency in here that becomes very important. The ability to use, if you want to go there, you could talk about corporate landlords and corporate investors being able to partake in the private real estate market. And then you look at the opposite of that as individual private homeowners. They're saying we should be able to participate in, this economic system or the system of being able to use our homes to make money through short-term rental. So there's a lot of inequity in this. There's a lot of imbalance in terms of who's allowed to be okay financially. Who's allowed to make money in this economy? Who's allowed to take care of themselves and not be reliant on the government in New York City? This law has a lot wrapped up into it. All of these issues are not insignificant. But what can happen is if we can pass, our city council can pass 948A, it's a step in the right direction for correcting a lot of those issues.
I think it's just important if I just kind of state this as well. There have been arguments that have been made to say that somehow passing Intro 948A would somehow embolden or facilitate corporate actors into like buying 2-family homes and just turning them into permanent like short-term rentals. First of all, fraud is fraud. Like they're already
here.
Yes, absolutely.
and there are already rules in place for that. So if you were to, well, first of all, Intro 948A was written specifically pertaining to natural persons who reside in their home. You know what that means? It means you can't be an LLC and get registered under this. So to say, so if someone, like some corporate actor decides to do this, they're committing fraud. So there are consequences for that. So, and there's no difference now as it would be under 948A. Those protections are still in place. So there's nothing that happens that opens the door to that whatsoever.
And as we're talking about people being affected, where I think what's also interesting is, I think I read like a few months after the law was implemented that the hotel prices went up like 30%. So as soon as they were able to, they just, it's about greed, and they're trying to squeeze every bit of money out of everyone else and eliminate whatever little bit of competition they can possibly have. So I think if we follow the money, it's pretty glaring. Yeah.
I'd say the biggest slap in the face, honestly, is the fact that the people who are exempt from having to register, a lot of those folks are like these luxury condos in these Class B buildings, and they're charging thousands of dollars a night. But yet you see this targeted enforcement on, grandma who's sharing a room for like $49 a night. It just doesn't make sense.
So I've heard the narrative that that short-term rentals are taking away from the housing stock. And you guys touched upon that, but I've seen some reports that it was like 50,000
rent stabilized units being warehoused.
Oh, yeah.
Correct. Oh, damn, we didn't even talk about that.
That's a whole other thing. I don't know the exact same number, but there's an enormous number of long-term rental units that aren't even in the market. That's tied to, landlord. And this is a whole different topic, but as I understand it, these units have been rent stabilized for a period of time. In order to bring them up to market, the landlords have to spend an exorbitant amount of money that they'll never be able to recover because of the rent stabilization issue. So there's an argument to be made that, we need to invest in fixing those units. That would increase the amount of actual rental inventory on the market. There's also true of some units in NYCHA, a number of units that need to be repaired to make
7,300.
Enormous amount as well. What I would emphasize for 1 and 2 family private homeowners, our cohort, if you will, most of us use our whole homes.
Yeah.
Like if you, and even if you're in a 2-family, people live multi-generationally. People who have college students, those kids come home, they can't fit back in that bedroom.
Yeah.
They got to go somewhere. And so, parents who are snowbirds, one of the families who that were a member of our group was in the Bronx. I could tell all these stories. Our group is Restore Homeowners, Autonomy, and Right, and 700 plus households. But one member in particular, the house her father bought, she grew up in. Then she bought the house, raised her kids in it. Her and her husband were New York, worked for the city of New York, retired, and they were using home sharing to be able to afford their generational home. Once local law 18 hit, they had to leave. They now have sold the home that her father bought, that she raised her children in, and they've had to leave the Bronx, and they're now down south with their children. And that story repeats over and over again. Last week, we had somebody call crying. We tapped out. We're out of time. We did as best as we could for as long as we could. Now we had to leave our home. And by the way, our old tenant who's 74, who's been with us for 15 years, he's got to go find somewhere else too. So this is having a compounded effect across our communities. It's not just us as homeowners who are impacted. As Erica talked about, when home sharing and short-term rental comes out to the boroughs, to Queens, to the Bronx, to Brooklyn, it improves and impacts the entire community. Bodegas get more traffic, cafes get more traffic, the restaurants get more. The lady down the street can have her little, cleaning day job. The gentleman down the street or the woman down the street can do their handyman or handywoman work. This is creating microeconomies in our communities that we need.
I would also argue that it's also increasing the capacity for tourism in New York City, because most people can't afford to stay in an expensive hotel in Manhattan. So if you just look at it, just basic economics, if we already know that the people who stay in Airbnbs tend to be budget travelers, they can't afford $500 a night in a Manhattan hotel. So what happens? They go to the outer boroughs. They're contributing to the local economies. That means the small businesses, the restaurants, the hardware stores, the grocery stores. Yeah. They're also facilitating those small homeowners in certain neighborhoods that tend to be under-resourced. So what happens now? You have now increased the entire capacity of tourists to now come into the city. And where do they always go anyway? Everyone funnels into Manhattan, Broadway, Times Square, Empire State Building. So what you've done is you've actually drastically increased the tourism revenue that comes into the city. So there's no real argument against this. And I just want to touch on something very quickly when we were talking about, the rent stabilized units, right? That's a very big part of this conversation, because if that is being used as the justification for local law 18 in order to preserve housing stock, then that means we would be required to have this conversation on why there is such a limited supply of housing stock. And 50,000 warehouse units, that's not a small thing. 7,300, 4.5% of NYCHA apartments that are just vacant, that's not a small thing. So, it makes more sense to focus on the reasons, because we all understand the law of supply and demand. When people are taking these units off the market, what does that do? It lowers the supply. What does that do to the demand? It increases the demand and therefore increases the prices. So a young family sharing a space in their own home where they reside has absolutely nothing to do with long-term rental stock. And we have to stop allowing people to even parrot that narrative, because it literally makes no sense.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make the point when Tony was talking about, tourism in Times Square and, the like, who's winning? Hoboken. Well, the hotel's winning.
Actually,
Hoboken,
Jersey.
Oh, Jersey.
City.
Jersey. Yeah.
I've heard that.
So
Everybody's
all of that overflow, people aren't
hotels.
suddenly saying, I'm
not
going
gonna come.
New York.
Yeah.
They're like, I'll just go stay in Jersey.
And it's funny, the hotels win because they don't care if you go stay at the Hilton in Manhattan or in New Jersey.
They're
They
saying
still
that
win.
short-term rentals in Jersey.
No, but they have
Yeah.
short-term
They,
rentals.
the
they don't have
short-term
the-
rental
I've heard-
industry.
Oh, right. As far as the short term,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true.
And
That's
to
true.
the point about 50,000 units, I think at the height of when before local law 18 was implemented and enforced, it's about 40,000 something. Wasn't that the
Yeah,
number?
41,000.
41,000
Mhm.
total units,
Mhm.
which is lower than what's available with these warehouse units. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
the 1 and 2 family homeowners, we're conveniently
Oh, good point.
Scapegoats,
scapegoated here.
absolutely.
And
That's a good point.
the
Mhm.
conversation about, I think just to take it back to the root here, the affordability crisis that's happening in New York City absolutely impacts renters. But that affordability crisis extends 1,000% to homeowners, and in an exponential way, because while you might worry about your rent, and that's real, we're worried about the increased property taxes, the increased insurance, the increased energy bills.
Water.
Utilities.
Every
Yeah.
repair that you have somehow costs $1,000, no matter what
It's
it
crazy.
is.
Mhm.
All of that falls on the homeowner. And we don't have a way to, especially in a 1 and 2 family,
Mhm.
you can't spread that out among 3, 4, 5 units. It's like all or nothing.
Exactly.
So
Sure.
the what I would offer for folks who are listening is that this affordability narrative that people think it's just owned by the renters, it's not true, and it's not antithetical to your work to help renters
Mhm.
who are suffering from affordability, to also help homeowners. It's within your mission. So I'd encourage all of those people with that particular mission to incorporate homeowners in this issue in particular.
Mhm. I've heard some.
Excuse me, can
Mhm.
you check if somebody made comments on? So we can look at it.
Okay. I've heard something that I know firsthand is false, and that's that the Bill 948 that was drafted, that the organization was receiving outside funding. I know firsthand because, I've contributed a $50 here, $100 there, whatever I can when I can to help keep New York homeowners alive. Go ahead. But I think that Tony
Yeah.
can say firsthand that
Yeah.
that
I
organization
can tell
hasn't
you
received any money.
absolutely.
Mhm.
We have received zero money from any corporate interest. The only people who have funded our organization are the homeowners who are facing the loss of their homes, including myself. I mean, that's, to me, I guess that's that's the craziest part about this, that we have special interest groups accusing us of being a special interest group in fighting against a law or a bill that was drafted by homeowners who funded it themselves. We are a grassroots organization, and we have received no contributions from anyone other than the people who are experiencing hardship right now. And that's it.
I'm gonna see if I can see some questions here really quickly. And then we will wrap it up. Let me see. Ooh, my eyes. Oh, look at me. Okay. Okay. From time. Maybe it's Tim Elliott. The city actively promotes short-term rental for the commercial purpose of film shoots. I don't think that that's the case. Yeah, there's separate organizations that you can acquire films. Because I've been solicited for that numerous times, actually. Tech platforms made. I don't understand that. Tech platforms that made short-term rentals scalable, safe, and reliable just before the city changed the building code for private dwellings. You understand that?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Tech platforms that made short-term rentals scalable, safe, and reliable just before the city changed the building codes for private dwellings.
There was an argument for a while before, like, short-term rental or home sharing goes back decades, 50s, 60s.
Mhm.
Back when redlining happened, people were pushed out, especially to the outer boroughs.
Mhm.
What do? We take a lemon, we make some delicious lemonade. So people figured it out.
Mhm.
But obviously, when you come to more present day, when people think Craigslist, think some of these platforms that were unregulated, people were using those as a means to get tenants or get opportunities or connect people who needed a place with people who had a place. That was not safe.
Oh, okay.
Going on an unregulated, you don't know who you're getting, you don't know if they'll pay.
Mhm.
And so some people have said that the ability to at least have a vetting system and an intermediary
Mhm.
made it a bit safer.
Mhm, that's true.
it's a debate
Mhm,
to be happening, but I imagine that's what that's referring to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't, I mean, it's an interesting point to make, but
Mhm, mhm.
again, what we're really trying to do is restore, our right to have autonomy over the homes we own
And live
and the
in.
homes we live in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
I mean-
obviously, if we live in the home, we want people who are safe.
Obviously,
I mean, that's
true.
the problem with
That's
the current
true.
law. It
Mhm.
says that you have to be in the
Ah.
unit with the person that you are renting
And
to.
also not
Well,
have any door locks.
No locks on the
Yeah.
door, no more than 2 people. That
Well-
means if you have a mom and dad and a kid, you're in trouble.
They can't.
currently.
Yeah, well, just even that provision in itself, I mean, honestly, it's just a blatant violation of the Constitution. I mean, but went to the argument that was made by Tom Kaler, he's repeated this several times, and it's a false claim. He's saying that the reason why that provision is there to require that the host be on premises at all times is because somewhere in the housing maintenance code, it requires that for you to have boarders, that you must be on site. That is absolutely false. There are standards that define a permanent resident. We all know that. It has absolutely nothing to do with you being in the house at the same time as a visitor. That's just ridiculous. But when people keep hearing these things over and over and over again, they just start to repeat it. And so I honestly think the biggest thing that we faced here is just who is dominating the narrative, who has the loudest voice, and who's being overshadowed. So that's why I always appreciate being able to get on any platform just to share the truth. And I like to answer questions about this because I mean, I can just be honest with you. I still can't find an oppositional argument to 948A that makes sense. I literally wrote it in a way that it would be complementary to local law 18. It does not change anything in the housing maintenance code as it pertains to any other dwelling other than 1 and 2 family homes, which are private dwellings where there is the primary resident in the house who owns that home. Nothing else. So, I mean, it's that simple. Hey, I get autonomy over my own home. If there's a visitor that I'm hosting from out of town, I have a right to lock my bedroom and remain safe.
We want the right to lock our
Yeah,
bedroom. And
But
remain
but I
safe.
mean, just imagine how demeaning is that for someone to say, yeah, you can have a guest, but your government says that you can't lock your bedroom. That's
no
ridiculous.
sense.
Then what you say, scoot over, sir.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry, pass the salt. No,
Yeah.
it's not realistic.
And then to say that they would need to find a way of verifying if you're home by going and knocking on your door and asking your guests, did the host sleep in there last night? Are we listening to these arguments? That's what Christian Klausner literally said during the hearing.
What?
We have to reverse course on this because this is a serious problem. I get it. I understand. Yes, people are hurting from this, but this is also about protecting our rights, plain and simple. If we're talking about a law, it must be lawful. And that's what needs to be made clear.
Okay, I think that's something that's probably not clear for a lot of people. Local law 1108.
Oh, you got 1107.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
So local
No.
law 18 was the original law
Right,
that was
right.
implemented.
Okay,
The bills that are put forward is 948A.
right.
Mhm.
Okay, 1118.
Local law 18.
Okay, that's the one that's currently enacted, and it states that there can be no locks on doors, right?
No.
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 Okay.
No, actually, local law 18 is simply about registration. But
Okay.
the clever thing about local law 18
Mhm.
is it tethers you to the mayor's office of special enforcement for registration.
Okay.
So while the law itself is not a violation of anything,
Mhm.
it requires you to register with an agency that is crossing the boundaries of your rights in your home. So in order to get that registration, you have to agree to, first of all, conditions that are not even meant for private dwellings. And you also have to agree to basically giving people unreasonable access to your private home.
Right.
So you see the
right,
problem
right.
there?
Yeah. That's
So-
that's
so-
what I was hearing. I want clarification on
So
that.
948A.
I'm just not doing it.
Right.
So, I was like, nope.
And that's why I wrote 948A the way it is.
Mhm.
It doesn't negate local law 18.
Mhm,
All it does is it creates clarifications within the housing maintenance code
mhm,
that no longer allows the OSE
mhm.
to violate the sanctity of the homes
Mhm.
of private homeowners who reside in their homes. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
And before we go, I know we have to wrap. I
Yeah.
do want to bring up something that's also come up in this. So this idea of being self-sufficient, being able to take care of ourselves is critical to Black and brown families. And one of the things we've seen a lot in the news recently is deed theft and
Mhm.
tax liens. When you
Mhm.
talk about the kind of income, the couple extra hundred, or even if you're lucky in a couple extra $1,000 in a month, whatever it is, those unexpected expenses, those are the types of things that income from responsible home sharing can help with. It's unprecedented the amount of deed theft that we're seeing. And that's because people have gotten financially vulnerable. If I'm in I got a call today on the way here. Are you thinking about selling your home?
Mhm.
Well, not yet. But if you get me into a position where I got to choose between losing the biggest asset I have and somebody saying, let me help you out. I can help you out with this little thing.
Mhm.
Or
Cash.
choosing between paying my water bill or paying the mortgage, I'm going to eventually, something's going to have to give. And so these things are not insignificant in terms of in empowering, right? We want to empower any homeowner, particularly brown and Black homeowners, to be able to take care of ourselves. This is a mechanism for that. And to cut it off for people who really need it would be a shame. It is a shame because that happened, but it would be a huge victory for this council to undo that.
Did you want to make any closing remarks?
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for the opportunity to put a face that, this is not a victimless crime, as marginalized. We are real people who are, I really can't even put into words the benefit I've gained. As a single mom, I'm able to have this added income and, use my extra time to help my son's school or volunteer or just be active in the community. And if I have to focus on trying how I'm gonna pay bills and not rely on this income, it's just taking away from my quality of life with my child, with my community, and things that I'm able to do. And that's all we're asking for here. We're not, no one is getting filthy rich over this, or it's not. It really, but it can be super impactful. A couple of $100s a month. Just to help.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm also a single home. I have a child
Parent,
as
yeah.
well. So it's like I feel it. Because all of the responsibility is on me. It's interesting because I hear a lot of narratives talking about, oh, it's the gentrifiers, it's this, it's that. I'm like, no, it's not. And I, like you, are struggling just to stay in my home.
Mhm.
In this neighborhood that I love.
Right.
Yes, and it's really shameful that
Yeah.
homeowners are being blamed for this. Like,
Mhm.
the housing crisis in New York. I'm a native New Yorker. It's a decades old issue. And so to now try to pin this on us, like this is all brand new. It's like, no, it
Correct.
hasn't. It's literally been generations. Like I've never known a time where housing has been easy in New York, or like it's not been an issue. But now that they have someone to scapegoat and say, oh, it's your fault.
Absolutely.
And it's really unfair. Like we're such a small group.
Yeah.
And to pit this on us is really unfair.
And people have to think 5, 10, think a generation down the line. In this market, if any of us lose our homes, we can't get back in this
Yeah,
market.
that's
in this
Absolutely.
market.
That's it.
You can't buy back into the market,
Yes.
and you can't even find a
rental.
suitable rental in this market. This is the generational wealth gap is tied directly to whether or not folks have financial stability now and have something to pass on to their children.
Well, I would
The
ask.
loss of this income, sorry, Tony,
Sorry.
loss of this income in this moment will mean we're set back another generation. You're exacerbating the wealth gap. And that can't be forgotten. It's not a single month-to-month issue for people. This is about stability.
Well, I would ask how can you solve the housing crisis by rendering thousands of people into a position of facing homelessness?
Mm-hmm.
So, or displacement. And just to wrap it up, because no matter how much We hear how many false narratives are told. I mean, there's a simple solution to all of this. Read the bill. That's the one thing that I've seen in common with all of the people who have been critiquing 948A. Virtually none of them have actually read the bill. So either they haven't read it or they're deliberately misrepresenting it. I've put out multiple op-eds, articles, debunking the false narratives, but people are just still allowed to continue repeating the same lies. And so that actually makes me feel good in a way, knowing that, wow, this legislation must be good, that they can't even actually come up with like a legitimate pushback against it. So I encourage people, if you have any hesitation, apprehension, and also to our city council, just read the bill, or you can feel free to contact me at, I don't know, did I put my phone number on it? I don't know.
No, maybe just the website.
Yeah, the website. You can just go to nyhomealliance.org. That's nyhomealliance.org. And, just send us a message. And I'm happy to explain anything or answer any questions because it's really not complicated.
It seems like it's quite, I've read, so
Right.
It seems like it's very, it's an easy read.
That's actually funny.
What?
The people who are pro 948A, they all seem to have read it.
Yeah.
But anyone who's against it, they haven't. Wow,
Mhm.
interesting.
Okay, so once again, for those, so there is a meeting, council member meeting, is something on Monday?
A
Is there?
vote.
A vote. Oh, it's
No,
a vote?
we're
No.
trying to
Generate more
the
awareness.
last vote of the term
Mhm.
is December 18th. And
Okay.
so we're doing everything we can up to that point to help make sure that our council members, to first of all say thank you to those who are supporting the bill and hearing homeowner and support homeowners in general.
Mhm.
So it's just very important that people connect the dots to real people. These are not victimless crimes. We are literally somebody every day in our group is facing the choice of how am I going to pay this mortgage this month.
Mhm.
So we know that this is the end of a term.
Mhm.
And so we're really doing everything we can to get it passed before the end of this year because the new administration turns over all of those things. So the vote is coming up and we're hopeful. The hearing was on November 20th. We did what we could. We still have a lot of work to do. If you want to join the fight, definitely talk to your council member and let them know that you're supportive of it.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So is there a way that people can maybe write in, whether they're a homeowner or not, 1 and 2 family homeowners, but especially 1 and 2 family homeowners, maybe they could write in to.
We want everybody, we want everyone who understands our plight.
Mhm.
Even if you don't use home sharing today, you never know what's going to happen in your life.
That's true.
God forbid you never, God bless you, put it like
Mhm.
that, if you never have a financial crisis that
Mhm.
requires you to do this.
Mhm.
Or if you just want to do it because that's the way you roll, that's the way
Mhm.
you want to live your life. So even if you don't need it now, you might in the future. You can
Mhm.
help by sending a letter, visiting the office of your council member, letting them know you support homeowner affordability with 948A.
Homeowner autonomy.
Homeowner autonomy.
For 1 and
if
2
you want
family
to also
homeowners.
visit
Mhm.
roar.org, RHOAR.org. There's a letter writing tool there that you can go to as a homeowner, a block association, civic organizations, or just a New Yorker who votes. So there's a lot of ways to show your support, but very important to be vocal and let the council members know that you are supportive as a constituent.
There are a few organizations that have been trying to be advocates of homeowner autonomy. Okay, so you mentioned ROAR.
Mhm.
Okay, and then Tony, what's your organization's name again?
New York Homeowners Alliance,
Yeah.
NYHOA.
Okay, so and New York Homeowners Alliance actually drafted the bill. You
Yes.
did.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want people to know that there are many organizations that are advocates for homeowner autonomy, and you should reach out to any of these and others and see how you can lend your voice to this conversation and reach out to your council members and
Most
let
important.
them know that you support homeowner autonomy, because like we've said, you may or may not be a homeowner now, but you may possibly be one in the future. So we would like to have your autonomy in place in the future as well. Okay.
Absolutely.
I thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to next time on Community Cuts. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
You got it.
Community Cuts live from Brooklyn, New York. I hope there's a lot of information that you received. And please stay tuned, get involved. We're here to help. We're here to make things happen. So stay tuned and be cognizant. Brooklyn's in the house.